welcome to the Oakland County Megacast. I'm Tyler Kieft, alongside Ronnie Dahl in the studios of Civic Center TV and 89.3 Lakes FM, our flagship television and radio stations on our family of media outlets on the Oakland County Megacast. In addition, today, also on Comcast, Channel 15 and AT&T Channel 99. In Birmingham, Bingham Farms, Beverly Hills, and the village of Franklin, we are with Birmingham Area Municipal Access. And in Bloomfield Hills, via the Bloomfield Hills School District, we are also joined, as always, by 88.1 WBFH, The Biff. And today, we are on the Facebook page of my co-host, Ronnie Dahl.
Tyler?
Yes, Ronnie.
I'm a little sleep deprived. So, Trixie Dixie, for all of us pet parents out there, decided to wake me up about 4 something. And she jumps into bed, and you're like, oh, I'm just going to pretend like I don't see her. And then it's like, and then she hits you with this massive paw. And I try to lay there as long as I can to pretend like I'm asleep. Other pet parents will get this. And then you're like, eventually, nope, gotta get up. Let's go. But then, as soon as you take your pet out, they go out. And by the way, she's just on neighborhood patrol.
Of course.
She's just like scouting out the neighborhood, like,
Nice.
I want to sniff here, I want to sniff there. And then she runs back up to bed, jumps back into my spot, and is asleep within 15 minutes. Meanwhile, you're wide awake. What are you gonna do?
Right. Oh yeah. At that point, you're wide awake, and you've been awoken. You're all energized from chasing Trixie around, and craziness has ensued. And now she's just asleep, having a good old time, dreaming away, catching Z's. And meanwhile, all your Z's are in her general area now.
Well, I'm tired. I have bags under my eyes. I did not really do my makeup because then you start putzing. So I was done with my work side of things by 6. I was going to start emailing. I was like, a little bit too early. Let me just wait. And then have you ever done this where you're so early that then you become late?
Yes. Yes, you're early. You have all the time in the world. You're like, okay, I can take my sweet time. And all of a sudden, 20 minutes ahead, it turns into 5-10 minutes behind, and you're just scrambling to play catch up. And you catch up, but at what cost? Exactly. Hey. My phone agrees with it.
Go ahead, put your phone on silent.
That's a good idea. There you go. I'm a professional.
But happy Wednesday, everyone. I hope everyone is having a great day. The sun is shining. That is the beautiful thing about taking your dog out for an early morning walk, because then you get to get out and see the sunrise. And we've had a visitor outside our kitchen window. We have this big tree, and a robin has been coming every morning, like pecking on the window.
Now, I don't know if you got a good look, Ronnie, but did that robin happen to follow you all the way to the office and join us in the studio this morning, as we had, for not the first time, but the second time, an appearance of a bird in the building, mysteriously to all of us, as I was the last person out of here last night, and this bird was not in the building. I patrol the entire building. I lock all the doors. I secure all the windows, all of that before we leave. Lock the building down. No alarm goes off all night. And then all of a sudden, this morning, bird. Who knows?
I don't think it's the same bird, though.
Probably not.
By the way.
That would be an amazing story, then.
So what's crazy is, right now I'm trying to post onto my Facebook page, because we're live streaming today's edition of the Megacast on my Facebook page, my journalist page. And as we've talked about before, is because I don't pay for advertisement on my journalist page, then I get more attention if I repost on my personal page to tell people to go over to the journalist page.
Of course.
But it was like live streaming in my ear with a delay, so it was very confusing. But no, not the same bird, because the bird flying around in the office this morning, Tyler, was not.
No, wasn't a
cardinal.
No, yeah, it was not. We've had an interesting couple of days here, Ronnie. A couple days back on Monday, we got restocked with hand sanitizer, a couple big bins of 67, 68 fluid ounces of hand sanitizer, and then yesterday we got another package. Now this package, Ronnie, this is a fun story. This is a much smaller package, okay? put this in the frame.
Okay.
Not something you expect a 68-ounce thing of hand sanitizer in. Well, guess what? It's not. What was in there, BioFreeze, which is a long-lasting pain relief gel. Now, this was addressed, much like the hand sanitizer, our business manager at Motown Digital addressed it to me at this office, as was this package. Mind you, our business manager on the Motown Digital side has no clue where this BioFreeze has come from. I have checked my Amazon accounts. I have no idea where this BioFreeze has come from. I called Dave Alberry, our executive director from the Cable Commission. No idea. Then finally, this is a process that took an irresponsibly long time to figure out. But on top of doing everything else and juggling all the other things we do on a daily basis here, and then we come to find out it was, in fact, an Amazon packaging error, and the wrong slip got on a box of BioFreeze. So if you are missing a package delivery of BioFreeze, we apologize. We can't help you.
The funny thing about that, Tyler, is that you took the time to do that, because I'd be like, hey, free package from Amazon.
Well, I was just trying to figure out if someone had hacked into one of my Amazon accounts or something and had bought that, because that's not a cheap package of BioFreeze. That's like $35 for 114 grams or so of that bottle. But I guess it's okay, because in the end, that pain relief cream can be used, spray can be used to solve the massive pain in the that process was.
So I will say, though, an alert to our viewers as well as our listeners, there is an Amazon scam that's going on.
Yes.
And it looks so real. Typically what's happening for me is the email is coming in to say, hey, we'd like to confirm your purchase of blah, 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 blah. And then you look, it's something you didn't order, but it's also an address not associated with you. Mm-hmm. The last one I think I received last week was an address in Florida. So normally the first thing what you would do is it's coming through your email, you would click on it.
Of course.
You don't want to do that.
Right.
So what you want to do is go on to your Amazon account. So go to your computer, click on Amazon, look at your recent purchases through your Amazon official account. And if there's nothing there, ignore it. Do not click on it. It's a phishing expedition where they're trying to get your information. So it looks so real, though.
It does.
Tyler, they are doing such a great job.
Yeah, I got a few of those around the holidays, and actually that Amazon scam kind of connects to the story yesterday, because an account of mine, an Amazon account of mine, on one of my emails was connected to my old phone number. I changed phone numbers like a year or so ago, and it one of the secondary numbers on that account was my dad's home phone number, because I used to live with my dad. And so he had been telling me, because I asked him if he had ordered that for his MS or something, and to ease the pain from his multiple sclerosis, and he had said no, but I've received a bunch of calls saying that there are odd charges on your Amazon account. And I had him send me the phone numbers that he had received those from. They were all in the same phone number and area code of his phone number, and they were all scam numbers.
You know what?
There's a lot of that going around.
It's so funny, because many people may know that my husband fell victim to a scam. I really wish he would have consulted with me before he made the steps he did, but he didn't. But he fell victim to a scam, and then it was featured on Fox 2, because I was like, share your story, because there are other people.
That's a good story.
But on top of that, so what we did is, because they kept calling our house number and it was ringing off the hook, and so in order to stop that, we called Comcast and said, hey, can we change our home number? We still have a landline. We're one of those people. Don't ask why. But I will say, since we officially changed our home number, our phone doesn't ring at all. And it was really just that overflow number that we would use for, like, when you go to Kroger and you put in your number to get the awards card. It was just that overflow number. We really didn't use it any longer. But it's funny to see how, when you put out a new number and you don't associate it with any type of marketing, that phone has been silent.
Oh, yeah.
So when I was working from home, Tyler, it used to ring every day around 11 o'clock. And so if we would forget to turn off the ringer, or if my husband was at home to quickly answer it, you could hear it ringing in the background because it was, not near me. But it's just the level of this, deception is crazy. So you have to be careful out there.
You do, yeah. You got to be very careful. There's a lot of different scams that are going around. They're always changing. They're always changing the strategy. Sometimes it's a similar basic strategy, but with a different disguise. If it's Amazon one day, it could be Walmart the next day. It could be eBay the next day. It could be your Google. It could be Google in quotations the next day. There's always something, but it's a lot of the same tactics. So you got to know the very basics. If it's something related to one of your accounts and you're not sure if it's legitimate or not, the first thing you do is check your accounts, and then if there is no evidence of that being connected to that, then obviously you just delete that email. And if there is something that maybe does point toward that, you call the customer service number and make sure that they did send it to you before you click anything.
Yeah, they look so real, though. I had it with my Netflix as well.
Yeah.
But if we can, let's go ahead and jump into the headlines. I'm going to kind of start reverse order because the first big headline, of course, that everyone is following, we're going to have the Vice President of Government Affairs for the Michigan Restaurant and Lodging Association on with us. But before we get to him, let's just say, hey, if you work for the automotive companies, listen up, because the Detroit 3 auto workers who live or work in the city of Detroit can now get their COVID-19 vaccines. That means at least 8,000 union members working for the former Chrysler automobile, I think it's Stellantis, will be eligible for the shots. Most of those workers work for the 2 Jeep plants in the city of Detroit. Others live in the city and work for other facilities. Also, thousands more manufacturing workers, even those who work for Ford or General Motors, can also get the vaccine, provided they live in the city of Detroit. So 3 manufacturing plants can get a vaccine from the city. There are no age restrictions. That's according to Detroit's Mayor Mike Duggan. The only criteria is that the auto worker must either live in the city of Detroit or also work in the city of Detroit. The city is going to start by offering the shots to employees at the 2 Jeep plants as well as other auto workers at the TCF Center downtown. Appointments, though, keep in mind, are going to be made by calling 313-230-0505. We have that number on our website, civiccentertv.com. Of course, we have so many people here in our neighborhood and our communities that also work for the big threes that will now qualify for the vaccine if they work for the automakers in the city of Detroit.
Yeah, and auto workers earlier on in the pandemic were key to the response in developing PPE to send out to various places in the state of Michigan and throughout the U.S., and they did their part on the front lines earlier on. So really nice to see, particularly in the city of Detroit, that they're putting an emphasis on helping them out in this situation, getting them vaccinated, moving their spot up in line a little bit as a thank you for their service earlier on in the pandemic, and because it's such a key industry in the state of Michigan and particularly in the city of Detroit and in the metropolitan Detroit area, that making sure that people that are working in that industry are able to return to work safely and be vaccinated is going to be key.
I will say, though, Tyler, I'd be interested if anyone actually is trying to get one of these vaccines in the city of Detroit. If you want to reach out to us, we'd like to hear from you, because one of the things that we're hearing, I'm like, well, there's a vaccine shortage, so you're opening up to more people. Does it make it more frustrating for you to be able to try and get it? And I believe that there is talk that they are going to include members of the media in an earlier vaccination, program before the general public. And I will say, I think a lot of people are kind of hesitant to be able to do that, because you're like, there are so many elderly people that are still trying to get the vaccine and they are more vulnerable. So some people do feel like it's jumping in line, but you're like, well, if there's such a shortage, how is the city of Detroit getting so many of these vaccines, and how is that actually working? So I think it's great. I do know that the city of Detroit and Mayor Duggan, they also did include grocery store workers in that previous group of allowing them to get the vaccine. And we just saw Whole Foods there in the city of Detroit. They had a huge outbreak in the city, and so they have closed that facility for a short time. But a lot of grocery store workers are saying, why aren't we considered frontline workers?
Yeah, and that's a fair question. They're considered frontline workers in the Future for Frontliners program. They're considered frontline. They've been talked about as frontline workers throughout the pandemic, and so there's obvious frustration there and justified frustration there. And as you said earlier, we'd like to hear from some people about this, if they have those frustrations, and get their point of view. On your screen right now, if you're watching on TV or on our replays, I've highlighted on our homepage our main studio line, 248-683-2343, and you can speak to our booking producer, Jake, about getting on to talk to us about that.
That would be great. The Oakland County Board of Commissioners preparing to hold in-person meetings next month for the very first time in a year.
Yes.
Tyler, it's crazy to believe this has been a year. Prior to the COVID-19 pandemic, public bodies were required under the state's Open Meetings Act to gather in person. The act was amended last spring to allow public bodies to meet remotely while moving public comment and attendance online. This became an issue last fall,
yes,
when the emergency orders were overturned. So now, as of December, Governor Gretchen Whitmer signed Senate Bill 1246, which extended the remote meeting provisions through March 31st. So unless new provisions are passed by the legislature and signed by Whitmer, elected public bodies will resume in-person meetings next month as required by law. So although the board may soon meet in person, residents who feel unsafe about attending in person will continue to be provided, for the time being, options to participate in the meetings virtually. I think we are going to see a change in the law that is going to allow, at least for the public, to attend some of these meetings virtually. And I think that's going to open up like a hybrid situation. Like we're seeing kind of that with the schools, so why not see it with our public meetings as well?
Yeah, it's a conversation that we're already having here at Civic Center TV, also with our community partners in the 3 communities that we broadcast meetings for, and with the West Bloomfield School District, about if and when they return to hybrid meetings later on this month, or what's going to happen after the current executive order and the Open Meetings Act changes, should they be extended or not, expires. So that's an ongoing conversation for those that are broadcasting the meetings, certainly for these communities and for the county, as they're preparing to return to some normalcy as the COVID-19 pandemic numbers continue to improve, and we inch very slowly closer to what may be the end of the pandemic.
So, of course, the big news coming out of yesterday was the governor announcing that she was going to be easing some of the COVID-19 restrictions. Her administration, Governor Whitmer's administration, issuing the wide-ranging orders yesterday that's going to be easing the COVID-19 restrictions on businesses, nursing homes, and other gatherings. A move the governor described as good news for the state of Michigan. The new policies come amid a decline in weekly coronavirus cases and deaths in the past 7 weeks, but right after the state experienced its first weekly increase in cases since early January. They will allow larger outdoor events to resume, double capacity limits at restaurants from 25 to 50%. That's really kind of been the big headline in all of this, Tyler. And the curfew is going to be moving slightly from 10 p.m. until 11 p.m. And it's going to start on Friday, but there is still a restriction on the length of time, and it's set to expire on April 19th. The new orders will also relax capacity limits on retail stores, moving them from 30% to 50%. I will say I'm kind of surprised at this because I've been at Home Goods, and it looks like the lines are pretty long there.
They're pushing, yes.
The limitation on indoor household gatherings will go from 10 people from 2 households to 15 people from 3 households. Who's really even following that? But those orders also take effect on Friday and run for 6 weeks. The latest directives also allow for family members who test negative for COVID-19 immediately to visit relatives in a nursing home as long as the facility has not had a new COVID-19 case in the last 14 days. So welcome news, but not rejoicing. A lot of people, because when it comes to the nursing homes, I have friends that have their families in some of the nursing homes, and they say when you keep reading through the order, it's really no different than what's been in place, because it has to do with so many restrictions. And so while you can visit in person, you still can't touch one another. And that's what so many people feel like they need to be able to do during this time. And also we're looking at the restaurants and the curfews at 50% capacity. It's better than nothing.
Yeah, it's better than nothing for the restaurants. We'll get a better perspective on that here in a few minutes from our first guest, John McNamara from the Michigan Restaurant and Lodging Association. But in terms of the nursing homes, it's welcome that you get to be in the presence of your loved ones again and be there in person with them and not have to go through the virtual means. But it's that embrace that people have really been looking for. And I think that's where the disappointment in this comes from. There's such excitement when they say you can visit your family there once again in a limited manner and after testing negative for COVID-19. But then when you look further into it and you know that there are additional sub-restrictions within that lighter overall restriction, that it still is kind of similar to what we're already having, except instead of requiring virtual visits, you're able to have in person.
So always go behind the headlines, like the headlines are there. But also, I didn't catch a lot of the governor's press conference. I kind of dipped in and dipped out. I had other meetings going on yesterday afternoon. However, we want to keep in mind, don't let it go away, is the payout to the former health director, but also it's coming out that other members of her administration, including the individual that ran the unemployment service, and we know what a debacle that was, he got a payout.
Yeah, he got his money, but the people didn't.
Yeah, exactly. And so the governor yesterday, I really wish some of these press conferences were in person because I feel like she's getting a pass on this, but she also kind of bristled at, hey, this is common. No, it's not common. I'm here to tell you, if you are a private entity and you want to make these deals, go ahead. You're a private company.
Right.
But when you're dealing with taxpayer dollars, you do not get to do this. And if you're going to do it, then be open and be transparent. And at one time, Whitmer was an advocate for open, transparency within government. That appears to have gone away. And so now we do have the GOP that is calling for an investigation, not only into the payment of the former health director, but also 2 other people that have come out have also recently been paid off that left her administration. Look, you don't get along. You go in different directions. Just say that. You can sign a non-disclosure. That's okay.
Right.
But if you're going to do it, don't say this is how it's done and then try to put the blame on the people for asking questions.
Right. You can provide basic information without violating the terms of an NDA, of a non-disclosure agreement, or of a confidentiality agreement, whatever you want to call it. And her balking at that question, a simple question that's clarification off of a story that had been breaking and has been on everyone in the media's mind and many people in the public's mind, certainly in her political opposition's mind over the course of that day. And all you have to do in that moment is get out in front of it there and just tell the truth. Even if it's a light moment of the truth, you don't have to give us every single detail, but say, it wasn't exactly, we had a disagreement in policy, we had a disagreement in execution of these regulations, and I asked him for his resignation. He took his resignation, and he was paid because I asked him to leave.
Right, and it is hush money.
Right.
I'm sorry, you may say, it's not hush money. It's hush money, and I don't care if you want to pay out of your pocket, you can pay him whatever you want. But when you're using our tax dollars, it's hush money. And the one thing I have heard over and over as an investigative reporter who's put in countless FOIAs is it's such a small amount when we're looking at the overall budget.
That doesn't matter.
I'm sorry, but it's no different than when I'm doing my personal check balancing. Every little dollar counts. So don't discount it. You paid him to shut up. We all know it. Own up to it, and let's move on. But it begs the question, what was he shutting up about? And they had a difference of opinion. So what? I mean, because before it was like, keep the schools closed. Now, open the schools. What's that decision? There's politics behind it. We get it. But it's our tax dollars, and I think people are going to continue to dig into this a little bit more. But just keep in mind, to the public, you may be okay with it, and that's okay, but I think as our elected leaders, this is what kind of erodes our confidence in our elected leaders overall. These things, they add up.
Yeah, you don't have to be fully open, but you have to be at least open enough to where you're telling us some semblance of the truth and giving us the basics. We don't have to know every little detail about what's going on or what happened, the circumstances of your professional relationship with another person. But when it comes to taxpayer dollars, $155,506 is not a ton of money in terms of the entire budget, but it is a ton of money to regular, everyday Michiganders like you and I, who are sitting here thinking about the people on the unemployment lines that were struggling to get their earned money during the pandemic, and $155,000 goes to a former director of the Health and Human Services Department on his way out in an agreement to be confidential, and we'll give you a good recommendation. That's a big problem.
Exactly. So that's our rant for the day. Yes. But with that, of course, we've all been questioning the governor. If you want to quote science and data, give us the science and the data. And I think our next guest, after our break here on the Megacast, John McNamara. He's the Vice President of Government Affairs in the Michigan Restaurant and Lodging Association. We're going to take a quick break, and then when we come back, we'll be speaking with him on the Oakland County Megacast.
Michigan, we still need to stay careful because we don't want to go backwards, back to where we started. So keep standing 6 feet apart, keep wearing a mask in public, and if you have symptoms, talk to a healthcare provider about getting tested. To move forward, let's all do our part. So stay careful. Michigan.gov/coronavirus.
Hi, I'm Dr. Faust, the Medical Director for the Oakland County Health Division. The most important thing you can do to prevent the spread of illness is to wash your hands thoroughly and often. Follow these 6 easy steps every time you wash your hands. Step 1, turn on the sink and wet your hands with warm water. Step 2, apply soap to your hands and lather between your fingers, under your nails, and the front and back of your hands and wrists. Step 3, wash your hands by scrubbing them together for at least 20 seconds. Step 4, rinse your hands with warm, clean water. And Step 5, dry your hands with a clean cloth towel, a paper towel, or hot air blow dryer. If you're using a cloth towel, make sure to change it often. For handheld faucets, turn off the water using a paper towel instead of your bare hand. Step 6, if you're using a paper towel, throw it away. Practice healthy habits like washing your hands after coughing or sneezing into them to keep you and others healthy. Go to oakgov.com/health or call Nurse on Call at 1-800-848-5533 to learn more.
So great to have you with us here on the Oakland County Megacast. Of course, one of the big headlines coming out of the governor's big press conference yesterday was about reducing the restrictions on our restaurants. Starting this Friday, they are going to be allowed to be open to 50% capacity, and the curfew has been extended to 11 p.m. But does it go far enough? With us Megacast now. John McNamara here with us on the Megacast. He's the Vice President of Government Affairs for the Michigan Restaurant and Lodging Association. Our good friend, typically I tell them, hey, we shouldn't book the same guest over and over unless it's newsworthy. And here we are. I feel like we should just have you like a weekly, let's just set up a weekly spot for you.
I don't blame you for that, and I look forward to the day where I don't hear from you guys for a while, because that means we're at 100% capacity and it's nice out, and this virus is behind us. So that will be a great day for all of us.
So your thoughts on the governor's announcement yesterday?
So progress is always positive, and I don't want to discount that, but it was not the progress we were hoping for. So we are at 50%, but it's 50% with a 100-person cap. So I actually have members who, when it was 25%, 6 feet apart, no hard cap, they're actually losing capacity with that restriction. So, that was not something we were expecting, because it hadn't been in the order before, and all of a sudden it was there. So, and also, going from a meeting and event space where all of a sudden you can have 25 people inside your 10,000-foot ballroom instead of 10, but you can have 30% capacity in your pool. Just some of these just don't make sense.
See, this is why we love talking to people such as yourself, because you're so much more knowledgeable about the ins and the outs of some of these orders and these decisions, because we just see the headline. And the headline makes it seem like, hey, it's not what restaurants want, but it's more than what they had. But when you break it down like that, there are so many nuances to it that we need to understand as well in the public.
Yeah, so if you're a smaller operation, it was a pretty good day for you yesterday. If you were a bigger operation like a Buffalo Wild Wings, it was either status quo or you lost a little bit yesterday. Coming into March Madness, and it looks like my Spartans are playing some better basketball, so you're going to have 2 teams from the state in that tournament, and people are going to want to go out and gather, and they might not be able to, so they're going to gather in people's homes without masks, without social distancing. And listen, no one's following the 3 household, 15 people thing, and they never will. So they can be safer in restaurants than they can be at homes.
You were so right on that. All it's doing, I think, in a lot of cases, and I do know a lot of situations where people, even when the restaurants and the bars were being closed at 10, they were like, okay, everyone come to my house. And so then you were putting them in a closer, more confined space. But John, I wonder too, what is this going to be like for some of these larger venues to have to try to explain to some of their customers, no, we can have fewer customers? When they see the headlines, the general public doesn't understand. It can make it a tough discussion for some of these business owners.
It is, but they're used to having those tough. They've been having those tough discussions for coming up on 1 year, so they're used to doing that. But all we want and all we're asking for, and we understand we cannot be at 100% capacity right now. And to be honest with you, I don't think there's the appetite for 100% capacity right now. But what we do need is that we need a plan moving forward of at these different metrics, you can be open at this percentage. Michigan is the only state to not have that. 49 other states have that in place. We have provided that to the governor. We gave it to her in December. And so far, no request for a meeting, no discussion about it.
I've seen the image that has been going around social media that your association put out that really kind of broke down what all of the states were doing around us. Yep. What type of impact has that had on the response for your organization in these discussions?
I think they've been fantastic for the general public just to see how different Michigan is. We were not expecting that type of response to go to, that thing blew up. I had a friend text me from Florida saying it was going around Facebook down in Florida. I think it's a bad look for Michigan nationally that this is so out of balance. But even in terms of, people from Metro Detroit going to Toledo, people, from the Kalamazoo area heading down to Indiana and South Bend. So people are still dining out. They're just doing it in other states. And Indiana's tourism sector continues to grow. They have picked up speed. They've added employees, whereas next to Hawaii, Michigan has lost the second most in the country.
So with that, John, I have to say I've been out and about quite a bit over the past few weeks, and I've been surprised at the difference in some of the restaurants and the businesses that have been trying to adhere to that 25% capacity. Some of the really higher end restaurants haven't been, but some of the lower end, more dive bars where you wouldn't think they would really care have been more strict on the rules. What are you guys hearing from your members right now?
So from our members, we're hearing that they want to be open, and 25% isn't enough, and 50% isn't enough. But we're also hearing that if things like, if it's going to be 6 feet, if you have, if you're a breakfast place with a lot of booths, could you put up plexiglass in between and have that count for 6 feet? So they're happy to do it. They would like a little more flexibility on how to get to 6 feet. But again, what they want and what they deserve, because every other state has one from their governor, is a plan to move forward from here to there. And they're willing to accept if there's a big spike that they have to go backwards. They understand that's part of the deal. I don't think that's going to happen. I think Michigan is doing a very good job getting shots in arms. I think we'll be getting, even better now that Johnson's there, but they want a plan of this is 50, 50 no cap, this is 75, and dare I say it, someday 100.
John McNamara with us here on the Megacast. He's the Vice President of Government Affairs for the Michigan Restaurant and Lodging Association. And with that, John, I know that your organization has been trying to work with the governor, and you put out a press release a couple weeks ago or last week trying to talk about, hey, how can we manage this and connect the numbers with the numbers. So, hey, let's allow so many people in the restaurants or close the restaurants if a certain area has a certain positivity rate. Can you go into more detail with that?
Sure. So, it is, all we heard for the past year from the governor is science and data, science and data, science and data. So, we took science and data and, added it that, really when Michigan goes, above 10, you're limited, and then if it's above 15, you're shut down. And then, it needs to get to 10, and then between 7 and 5. And then when we get below 3, which we're in that in some areas in this state, and I think we'll be closer here soon, then you're open. You're open at, you're open as you would be if it were safe to be out and if this were pre-COVID. And we think that's a fair plan. We think it's safe. And, our members and any restaurateur in any state in the country, the vast majority of them go out of their way to protect guests and make sure that every guest has the best experience possible. And we just want our members to be able to prove that they can do it.
So we were talking a little bit earlier about the graphic that was going around on social media that your organization put out, and some things we're looking at is Wisconsin has no restaurant capacity restrictions. Illinois has changed theirs recently. I think for us the big ones really have to do with Ohio and Indiana, because they're so close to us as well.
Correct.
Indiana, no restaurant capacity restrictions. I do know that over the past so many months, I was going to Ohio quite frequently to work on our mother's house, and every time I went down, I was like, let me go to a restaurant, because I can't eat in a restaurant in Michigan.
Right.
It was just the experience to have that. But I'm also seeing so many people are going to other states such as Florida right now.
Yes.
Spring break is a big time. So what has been the response from the governor's office in your talks with her? Have you been able to get anywhere in the talks with the governor? And did you expect her announcement of the lift of some of the restrictions yesterday?
So we continue to have good dialogue with the governor's staff. We have not talked with the governor. She joined our board meeting in July. That would have been the last time we had a direct conversation with her. And in terms of the plan on how to reopen, they have acknowledged they've received it, but we have not had any substantive conversations on how to implement it. And again, we fully admit there's probably areas there where it needs to be tweaks and need to be changed. And all we're asking for is a conversation with her and her team on how to get this plan in place and how do we get there. And there's going to be give and take. There always is. That's how this business works, and that's how all business works. But again, if 49 other states can do it, why can't Michigan?
And on the backside, we do know that there are going to be a lot of people that aren't comfortable with going to a restaurant and eating indoors, and that's okay. Continue to support your local restaurants, do carry out, maybe do the outdoor igloos. Everyone has a different comfort level right now. My husband's comfort level is a little bit different than my comfort level, but there's a lot of focus right now on the restaurants. What about the catering industry and the banquet industry right now? We still can't do, kind of these buffets and things of that nature, right?
We cannot, and I mean the catering and banquet event space in hotels are the ones that have sort of been lost in all this, because people hear restaurants, and while hotels were never shut down, business travel was obviously halted this past year. Leisure travel was severely limited. So they've been equally as hurt. And again, right now, you can have in a 10,000 square foot ballroom, you can have 25 people. In a hotel pool, you can have 30% of your capacity. So it doesn't, those don't make sense. But, these people live and breathe on these events and these meetings. And when you can't have them, it kills their business. But also, what's the difference in putting people 6 feet apart in a ballroom between 6 feet apart in a restaurant? I don't see the difference. And, at one point we had 20 people per 1,000 square foot. That was workable. It was understandable. That seems to have gone to the wayside. And now we're picking these numbers probably out of thin air of how to get to 25. But, the governor's office refuses to just, offer the information of why 25? Why not 20 people per square foot? Why not 50 people per square foot or per 1,000 square feet?
And I will say, I'm going to continue my rant here for a minute, because if you're our elected leaders and you believe in the science and the data behind your decisions, provide us the raw numbers. It goes back with what we were talking about at the top of the show, Tyler, is we want the public, I don't care who is in office, it doesn't matter. It's our information. It's our data. We're paying for it, and we're paying your salary. Mm-hmm. So you need to answer to us. You work for us. Give us the information. Don't operate in a vacuum. And if you're working under politics, say, hey, it's politics. I don't care, but we deserve it.
Tell us something.
Right.
Absolutely.
We deserve it. And John, this has to be so frustrating for you and your members as well.
Yeah, I never thought, 14, almost a year ago, when it was 14 days to flatten the curve, that, I would have been on here probably 7 to 10 times, and we'd still be talking about this. And, my members would not have been, at most we're open at 50% for the past year. And, we're well over 3,000 restaurants closed in Michigan, and that number is going to continue to climb. And hopefully this is over soon. I hope by June, July, everyone who wants a vaccine has a vaccine in their arm, and I hope we're 100% capacity. And, I hope no one ever has to deal with a global pandemic ever again. It's not, in some ways it's been a long year. In some ways it seems it's been so much work. It seems like it's been, a short year.
John McNamara with us. He's the Vice President of Government Affairs at the Michigan Restaurant and Lodging Association. And John, just to circle back real quick to the hotels and the banquet halls who have been lost in all this, as you had said. For a lot of the hotels, they do have that support of a corporate chain, but for a lot of these banquet halls, and for some hotels too in the state of Michigan, they are independently owned, like a lot of our restaurants, and have been financially struggling over the course of this now nearing 12 months of the pandemic as well. With the regulations being where they're at, with them being as strapped as they are financially at this point in time, how much longer do they have? How much time do these independent businesses that have been kind of put to the wayside because the restaurants have taken the press in this situation, how much longer do they really have, and how well are they surviving, if at all?
I think they have a couple months left, but I want to go back a little bit. So the vast majority, I mean, your corporate chains, about 90% of your Marriotts are not corporate. They're independently owned.
Okay.
And I think a lot of people do, you know, and it's another thing that industry people know, but, you know, you're a franchisee when you buy those. So you're still a small business owner. You're making payroll. You're paying utilities. And, you know, if you have a bad month, corporate's not going to say, oh, sorry, here's the check. So, I mean, I think the hotels are next if something doesn't change quickly. And, you know, what are you going to do with a big empty hotel? So it's a scary, scary thought if something doesn't change here quickly for our members on the hotel, event, and banquet side.
So, John, I will say I was a little bit surprised that she did lift the capacity limits on the restaurants prior to St. Patrick's Day.
So, I mean, that was somewhat surprising. But, I mean, in some ways, and for your bigger establishments, she didn't lift the capacity. For your bigger establishments, with that 100-person cap, in some ways, she cut the capacity for your bigger bars. So, you know, St. Patrick's Day will be interesting. I think you're going to see a lot of people will go to the bar early and then go to a house party. I see that every day in East Lansing. I live right down the street from campus, and kids have just flipped it. They're now going to the bar earlier and going home and not masking and not social distancing instead of doing the opposite. So people are going to gather. They can do it far more safely in restaurants than they can in homes, but it's been a year. People are sick of it, and they're not going to stop gathering.
That is so true. I will say last year, right before St. Patrick's Day, I had joined the Gaelic League of Detroit and was so looking forward to my first St. Patrick's Day as a member of the Gaelic League. And then it got canceled. And I was like, I'm still going. And I got down there early because I do the race every year in Corktown, and there was no one there but me and my girlfriend. And we were like, okay. I guess they really are shut down right now. But with that, though, John, we always appreciate everything that you and your team members are doing. And we all want our community to be safe. And we are in this together. But all we're asking for is clarity and the science behind the decision making. And I think we all want that. And I know that you're frustrated and your members are frustrated. But again, we all want everyone to be safe in this pandemic as the vaccines. Before we let you go, any word on if they will include some of the restaurant workers in some of the essential frontline vaccine distribution schedules?
We continue to make that ask, and you've seen some counties prioritize restaurant workers as frontline workers, which they absolutely are. So we're hoping maybe, with the city of Detroit doing it and Oakland County including it in some areas, that this will start a trend, and maybe counties just start to do it, and that's how it gets done. But those employees are out there. Rules are changing every day, and they're continuing to do their best to let people enjoy some time away, and even if it's a little slice of reality, the best that they can.
So, John, has this past year been like dog years for you? You feel like you worked 7 years in one?
Well, yes, and especially since I started at MRLA in late February. So I was on the job about 3 weeks before all this started. So definitely been baptism by fire.
Well, you've done a great job, and we've always appreciated your time. And we hope that by doing these interviews, we're helping to inform the public, because the information is changing so rapidly. It's so hard to keep up on the changes. So we always appreciate your time.
All right. Well, thank you guys very much.
Thank you, and good luck to you guys as well. John McNamara with us here on the Megacast. He's the Vice President of Government Affairs for the Michigan Restaurant and Lodging Association. Our apologies to our next guest. We're running just a little bit behind schedule, but we wanted to get John on, Tyler, because it really is confusing for so many people.
Yeah, we're learning a lot more. I mean, the devil is in the details with these government regulations and government rulings, where you see the good news that the regulation is up from 25% to 50% capacity, but you don't hear from the governor in the press conference, at least not in passing. When you hear 50%, you're like, cool, it's good. They're getting an increase. That there is a cap on that, and there wasn't one before, and that affects, of course, as John had said, the bigger restaurants. A lot of the chains, like a Buffalo Wild Wings kind of a restaurant, which around this time of year is where they're making a fairly good amount of money during the NCAA tournament. And then on top of that, you have hotels and banquet centers that have been, as John said also, kind of lost in all this and forgotten in all of this, despite also having similar, if not equal, struggles financially and in terms of their operations as the restaurants have had.
Absolutely, but they've done a good job of trying to navigate it. I can only imagine. I wish I was a fly on the wall during this time to be able to listen to the behind-the-scenes conversations with some of these organizations and the governor's staff as well. We're going to take a quick break here on the Megacast. When we come back, we are going to be speaking with a rabbi over at Temple Israel as Passover is coming up soon. This is the Oakland County Megacast.
Michigan, the coronavirus pandemic has put us all to the test. And now it's time to put COVID-19 to the test. As we move forward, testing will be critical. We encourage anyone who has reason to get tested to do so, those with symptoms and those without. If you are leaving home and going back to work, get tested. If you think you may have COVID-19 or you've been exposed recently through family, friends, or coworkers, get tested. Our test locator tool can help you find the right testing site that fits your needs. Even if you're looking for easy access with no cost, no prescription, and no appointment necessary, we've got you covered. Help Michigan move forward, not backward. To find a testing site or learn more, visit michigan.gov/coronavirus test. A message from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services.
The only way to beat COVID-19 is to face it.
You can't get too comfortable.
You can't forget the danger.
Wear the mask.
Wear the mask.
Wear the mask. Wash your hands.
Keep a safe distance.
Especially in the next few months.
You know we'll get back to normal.
We'll get back to normal.
We'll get back to normal.
Someday.
But not yet.
Not yet.
Not yet.
But not yet.
But not yet.
Consider virtual gatherings for the holidays.
Curbside food orders.
Grocery delivery.
And shopping local. Shop local.
And especially shopping local.
Let's beat this virus. We can if we face it together.
Together.
Together. Together.
Together.
Together.
Together.
Together. Together.
Together.
Together.
For the latest information, visit oakgov.com/COVID.
Perry tested positive for COVID-19. Emma was exposed to a friend who's positive. Willa's waiting on test results. After any contact with COVID-19, or if you test positive, stay home for at least 10 days. If you live with others, keep your distance and wear a mask. Help Michigan contain COVID-19. Visit michigan.gov/contain-COVID.
Thank you for taking time out of your Wednesday to be with us here on the Megacast. As a reminder, you can always catch us Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. until noon. We are here in the studios, myself and Tyler Keefe. Civic Center TV, if you don't have direct access, you can always tune us in on the internet, Civic Center TV. And that's also a great place for you to catch our previous interviews and Megacast as well. You can also tune us into Birmingham Area Municipal Access, Channel 15 if you have Comcast, 99 on AT&T if you're out driving around. Tune us in, 89.3 Lakes FM, 88.1 FM The Biff. And then today we are also live streaming today's edition of the Megacast on my journalist Facebook page, Ronnie Dahl. With that, we are nearly, a year?
Yeah, coming up. Couple weeks.
A year into the pandemic. We did not anticipate being here at this point in time, yet we are all continuing on with the restrictions and trying to live with this virus, and that includes our religious organizations as well. With us now is Rabbi Jennifer Kaluzny. She is with Temple Israel. So great to have you back with us. How are you?
I'm great, thank you. Thank you for having me again.
I think the last time we had you on, your husband was working from home and your kids were remote learning. Is that still the case?
Mm-hmm. So my husband is assistant city attorney in Royal Oak, and they have him coming back in person twice a week. I have one daughter who's in person, and my son is in 3rd grade in the dining room right now. We're in Bloomfield Hills, and they decided we're going back full days April 5th, and he's really excited to go back.
Rabbi, what is it about our kitchen tables, right? I even have an office, but I still find myself setting up shop on the kitchen table.
Oh, it's because it's the hub, right? Everybody goes through, and everybody, you get a snack, you say hello, you do some work, and you keep going. I agree, 100%.
Exactly, and you're closer to the refrigerator. With that, but it's great to have you again. If we can just kind of do a check-in, how are you doing during all of this?
Well, thank you for asking. I have a hard time believing we're a year in, like you just said. My kid's last day of school was March 12th. The last time that I was in my sanctuary with my colleagues was March 13th. Since then, we have been doing life cycle events, but only one of us at a time, really, or one rabbi, one cantor, my musical counterpart, and we are very far apart, wearing masks. So I have to say, as a mom, as a rabbi, I'm very proud of how we've gotten through it. I think we've done incredible things at Temple Israel as a Jewish community to keep our community together, to focus on mental health, to take care of our seniors, to keep people connected Jewishly. Every Friday night for Shabbat, and then with holidays and programming. As a mom, I've been trying to keep my kids going, and they've been incredibly resilient, but we've definitely had our times. We've been very risk averse in our house. We don't do play dates, we don't have people coming in and out. And so thank God they love each other and love playing together. So that's a huge bonus, and I'm so grateful for that. But it's been hard. We miss people. We miss having people in our home.
I always tell everyone, Rabbi, when we get past this, watch out. I'm hugging everyone. If you're standing in line in front of me at Starbucks, I'm giving you a hug. If you're behind me in Target, I'm giving you a hug. I miss people.
Yes, that's just it. It's people. It's having people in our home. We love filling our home with friends and with family, and celebrating holidays together, which we cannot do and are not doing. And I agree. I love hugging people. It's the connection, right? It's that physical connection that we really miss.
For me, it's not even so much my family. I mean, I'm lucky because we have I'm from a very large family, but we have a very small family here in Michigan. But it's strangers. I get energy and I feel their stories, and I love stories. I love stories of strangers and talking to strangers, and that kind of fuels my energy. And so you miss that a lot.
Absolutely. I agree. I love people. And I know that may sound very cliche, but I build my life out of people. And I always feel very honored when I hear their stories. And, some of the stories have been incredibly triumphant, what people have overcome and what people have come through. And, especially as a rabbi, I've seen a lot of the grief, a lot of the tragedy, a lot of the tragedy of being separated from people that you love. And as Jews, when someone passes away, we spend a tremendous amount of time very close together after someone passes away. And we really haven't been able to have our rituals around mourning. And so those stories, I've even tried to listen to more intensely and do more follow-up with our families because those pieces are missing. So it's been difficult.
But as we go into Passover, how are you trying to adapt for Passover 2021?
So Passover came fast and furious last year, right after we were on lockdown. And we did, each of us had a piece, and we created a Seder that people could basically just press a link and join us. Because we were all in our homes, so we had to create a Seder with our cell phones. This year, now that everyone is a little more Zoom savvy, we're going to have people Zoom into our homes. And they can come in and basically be around our virtual table. And we're going to do it live, all of the rabbis and cantors. There are 8 of us. And then we're going to rebroadcast it because I have little ones, so we're doing Seder earlier, but there are definitely people who want to do Seder at 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock at night. So again, if they want to join us for Seder, we're going to rebroadcast it on the first night of Seder so they can watch later. And on the second night, we're going to have a second Seder, but the Jewish community, nationwide community, is actually doing a superstar Seder with the biggest names in Jewish music, are all getting together to create an incredible Seder with the best music ever.
So with that, it really is this new world is kind of opening us up to new people and new experiences, but just in a different way. Right. But for those not of the Jewish faith, can you explain to us the importance of Passover and your faith?
Absolutely. So Passover is the holiday where we celebrate the Jewish people going from slavery in Egypt to freedom. And this is kind of our core story. We're actually just finished kind of reading through it in the book of Exodus in our yearly reading of the Torah, the 5 books of Moses. And this story, we are commanded to tell our children, to pass this story down from generation to generation. And on the night of our Seders, it's a meal, a communal meal. We tell the story in a certain order. Seder, actually, Seder in Hebrew means order. And so we go through the different steps of the Seder, and all of it is to recount the story because God says we all need to see ourselves as if we too had left the land of Egypt. So it's also a very personal experience as we tell the story.
It's a beautiful story. And just as a reminder to everyone out there, you're listening to 89.3 WBLD Orchard Lake, 88.1 WBFH Bloomfield Hills. And with that, is it all going to be virtual again this year?
We're doing chocolate Seder for families. We are having our caterer do all the catering that she would always do. I was listening to your guest before this, and we have a caterer at Temple Israel, and it's been really difficult because we haven't had parties and Sabbath dinners and all of the other things, and she's an incredible caterer. So she is still offering her food. So when people pick it up, the rabbis will be there to say a hello and be able to see people because everything is virtual. We are following CDC guidelines, following the governor's guidelines. We also have a medical team that's been advising us on how many people is safe to have in our sanctuary. And we just recently opened up to extremely small family dinners. And we seat people by household. And, he's talking about these big ballrooms. We have a very large reception room, and we too are doing the same thing, having extremely small meals in extremely big places. But now that the weather is getting better, we had a tent last year. We're hoping to put up a lot of tents and get back outside as soon as we can. And like I said, as we follow our medical team, the CDC and the governor, we're hoping to open up too, but we're going to do it slowly and safely. But it's not going to be in time for Passover, which is in just a couple weeks.
I've been so lucky to be at a couple of events at your congregation there. It's a beautiful building. It really is. But as we're going forward, we try to look at the positive in some of these things that we've experienced, and we miss people, and we miss that sense of community. But what do you think is going to be the positive for you and members of your temple coming out of this pandemic?
Well, I think there are actually many. We've tried to look at what's happened as an opportunity as opposed to a challenge. We try to look at it as both. And one of the ones is pretty obvious. By doing things virtually, we've had a huge increase in people joining book reviews, in joining our Introduction to Judaism class. We've had people from all over the country coming to our services. We have people who are going to Shabbat, going to Sabbath services together, because even if they're in California and Chicago and New York and Florida, they're all in the same service. We have all the rabbis are working really hard to learn more technology because we feel that going forward, we want to keep that inclusion going. We want to have, of course, being together in person, but we want to keep those people who love Temple Israel, who maybe don't live here anymore, or have family members here. I'm sorry, that's my landline.
I'm glad I'm not the only one with a landline, by the way, because people laugh at me.
I'm at 11 too. It's also at 11. So.
Hopefully someone will grab that. So we want to actually keep that going so we can keep families who live all over the country and all over the world, actually, together. I just did a program doing the Sabbath blessings with a group, and we had people from Argentina, Israel, Mexico, and all over the United States together. So we want to keep that momentum going as we still return to our building and do things in person.
Jennifer Kaluzny with us. She's a rabbi over at Temple Israel, right here in our own backyards in West Bloomfield. If we can talk a little bit about the vaccine, and so many people are looking at it as hope from a religious standpoint, and also members of your temple. Are you offering it? Where do things stand in that regard?
So Temple Israel, we've been so proud of our testing site. We're actually a drive-through testing site and have been for quite some time. You can get COVID tested, strep tested as well. So we've been doing that for a long time. We are hoping to become a vaccination site, and we are working on that now because we love being a community partner, and we want to be able to bring that to our community safely at Temple Israel. As Jews, we are not allowed to deny ourselves medical treatment. We believe that our bodies are gifts from God. They are the vehicle for our souls. And because of that, we have a mandate to take care of our bodies. So getting this vaccine is a way that we not only take care of ourselves as mandated, but we take care of our community. As Jews, like I said, we do most things in a group. We even have some things where you're supposed to have 10 people together, minimum. And so for us in the Jewish community, the vaccination is a given. We want to make sure that everyone has access to the vaccine, and we want to be a part of that in any way we can.
Rabbi, and we've all learned community is so important right now, more so than ever, even when we can't be together in person. But with that, I think the most important question, have you conquered the new math? As a mom,
are you talking about my son?
Teaching at home. It's like I'm like. Can we just go back to the old math? I can't get it. I just can't get it.
Either. They do everything horizontally. I do everything vertically, and it doesn't work. And that is a hard no. Nope, I haven't.
So how's that been with you?
Luckily, my husband is like the math side. And even though he's an incredible writer, I'm more like the writing literature side. So between the two of us, thank God, we've gotten them through. But I have to say math, becoming a rabbi, very little math. And that was a really, really exciting thing for me to get rid of math.
We are all like, as parents, I'm not a parent, but I remember when my nephew was going through it, and luckily my brother-in-law, he is a math teacher, so we could have him, like he had to tutor him every week, because we're like, what is this you're teaching? And so many parents right now, we grew up on the old math and cursive writing. At least they're bringing back cursive writing. Sure. But
yes, I love that. My son's cursive is beautiful. I'm so glad about that.
Right? If we had to learn cursive writing, you need to learn cursive writing.
Absolutely.
Well, Rabbi, it's so beautiful having you with us. We so appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me. I wish you all good health. Please God, vaccination very soon, and that we're back together very soon.
Oh, we all would look forward to that. But also thank you for your time and your commitment to our community as well. It's much appreciated.
My pleasure.
Stay safe and stay healthy.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
We're going to take a quick break here on the Megacast, running just a little bit behind schedule, as I often do. And coming up next, we're going to be speaking with the Executive Director for Equality Michigan. I'm looking forward to this interview as well, Tyler. This is the Oakland County Megacast.
COVID-19 has caused many families to fall behind on finances and on groceries. But you're not alone. You shouldn't have to worry about putting food on the table. My Bridges offers access to quality food and income assistance to help families across the state get the food support they need. It's easy to apply and easy to start shopping. Apply for services at michigan.gov/MIBridges. A message from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services. Michigan, we're calling on you to save lives. Don't ignore it. Don't let it go to voicemail. It's urgent. In fact, it's critical. Because if you've been in close contact with someone who tests positive for COVID-19, you may have been exposed to the virus. And you could get a call from My COVID Help or your local health department. So please answer the call to learn how to protect yourself, your family, and friends. We're calling on you to stop the spread of COVID-19, to make it safe to reopen businesses and help Michigan move forward. So if you get a call from My COVID Help or your local health department, you may have been exposed to someone with COVID-19. To protect us all, answer the call. Learn more at michigan.gov/containcovid. A message from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services.
Thank you for being with us here on the Megacast. We are in the 11 o'clock hour.
Yes, we are.
Here. Tyler, I will say, every day I come to this job, I learn something new.
It is.
Nice. We have some great guests here on the show. And for those that maybe don't tune in to us every day, I get it. Some people might be a little bit busy. They can't listen or watch 10 to noon every single day.
Or a bit much.
So we get it. But I will say the great thing about this show is that we are able to bring you some interviews with some interesting guests as we are all continue to try to navigate COVID-19 in this pandemic, but also just learning so much about our community as well, in all aspects of our community. And so with that, we invite you to check out civiccentertv.com, because you can not only watch our full Megacast, but also just the individual interviews, because we know your time is precious. And so we want to say thank you for anyone that is joining us. We do appreciate it. And with that, let's go ahead and bring in our next guest. Erin Knott joins us now. She's the Executive Director for the Equality Michigan organization. Erin, thank you so much for being with us here on the Megacast.
Thank you. Good morning. It's great to be here.
For those not familiar with your organization, fill us in.
Equality Michigan is a nonprofit organization that serves the LGBTQ plus community, so the lesbian, gay, bisexual, trans, queer plus community here in the state of Michigan. We have what I like to call two silos within the organization. You have the political arm that works to elect pro-equality candidates up and down the ballot, and works towards passing pro-equality legislation, so legislation that impacts and betters the lives of the LGBTQ plus community. But we also have our Department of Victim Services, and that is staffed with a team of professional employees that provide 24/7 crisis services to members of our community that experience some form of trauma. So could be discrimination, could be harassment. Far too oftentimes, though, it is an act of violence. And we have, again, a team ready to provide wraparound services, help with the legal system, the medical system, connect to counseling services. Again, anything that a victim would need to get them the help that they need so that they can get back on their feet.
Well, I do have family members that are gay, and I remember finally being able, they had a wedding a couple years ago after the Supreme Court ruling, and they quickly got married because they were afraid that it would be overturned. And people don't understand this is about more than just that piece of paper. There are so many legal issues behind your marriage certificate, such as insurance. And if one of your loved ones, they may be sick in the hospital, and you need that legal binding agreement that allows you to visit them in the hospital. There are so many things behind that. So as someone who has a family member that is a part of your community, I want to say thank you for everything that you and your team members do. But I also wonder, what's it been like for your organization and for members of your organization during the pandemic?
Yeah, so, we had to, just like everybody, quickly shift, right? Shift gears, going from a work environment to working at, our dining rooms, just like I'm sitting here right now. That was a model that I'm used to, because I've been working, remotely now for the past, 15 or so years, and we serve people across the state of Michigan. So we have a physical space in Detroit. However, we are constantly on the ground and out in communities, connecting people to services, building political power and support amongst our community, to do organizing and to put pressure on the members of the legislature. So I think the biggest items that we had to adapt to was, how do you connect with folks that, I just watched the last segment, you now have parents that have their kids at home and people that aren't used to working, from their dining rooms. And, how do you then engage them and connect them when they're not used to just all the changes that we've been going through for the last year?
Aaron, one of the things that really concerns me when you think about some of these kids that are just starting to come to grips with who they are, but they feel like they need to hide it from their parents, or maybe they're in a community that doesn't widely accept the differences in our bodies and who we are. And now they're stuck at home and they're stuck in those environments. So are you seeing an increased need for help or mental health services from some of these individuals, especially teens? So
at Equality Michigan, we support a vast network of community centers. So centers that, primary purpose is to serve the LGBTQ community within a particular region or city. Looking at the Out Center in the greater St. Joe Benton Harbor area, they have an outstanding program where they predominantly work with teens and younger LGBTQ community members by way of the school system. So we were able to provide services with them so that they were utilizing tools such as social media to connect to those students, so that those students didn't feel left behind in this kind of current remote space that we're in.
That's so awesome. Erin, not with us here on the Megacast. She's the executive director for Equality Michigan. We do have here in Oakland County, Dave Coulter is openly gay. When you have someone in his position, openly gay, what type of signal does that send to the overall community? Does it help your organization and your mission?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I did an interview the other day and I was asked, what has the influence of pop culture been on advancing, acceptance and changing hearts and minds, regarding our community? And I think that it has a definite impact, and local elected officials do as well. I serve on the Kalamazoo City Commission, and I remember when I ran in 2015, people that didn't know me, I'd knock on their door to introduce myself and make my pitch, and I was then immediately tagged, the gay candidate. I've served a couple of years as vice mayor, and I no longer have that label because people see me as the woman that's getting things done, the woman that they can call when they have a nuisance property owner, nearby. Or in Kalamazoo, unfortunately, we're dealing with a gun violence crisis right now, and folks know that I'm serious about that. So that label has left. But when you're looking at kids in my community or in, Oakland County, folks look up to us, and they realize that they too can run for office. And it's just so much more accepting than it was when I came to Kalamazoo 20 some years ago.
I love that you say that, and I will say I'm not proud to admit this, but I remember when my brother was coming out to say that he was gay. I'm from a very small town in Ohio. We didn't openly know anyone in the gay community, and my brother was very popular. He was like, homecoming king and all these things. And when he came out, it takes a lot of courage. And when you really stop, and I think the best gift that we can give one another is when we open hearts to of each other. And I think a lot of that has to do with just starting with conversations. And one thing my brother said is, why would anyone want to be an outcast to society? I am who I am, and I'm proud to be who I am. And he is a beautiful soul, and he is the most loved soul, and he's an extremely talented soul. But I will say his talent, he's 2 years above us. Tyler, I have a twin sister. Okay. He stole all of our talent. So there was nothing left, Aaron, for my twin sister and I, because my brother can do it all. He's an amazing person, and we love, he's such a vital part of our family and our community as well. But these conversations and meeting people are so important. So how are you doing that in the middle of a pandemic when people can't get to know you heart to heart in, an open environment?
Sure. Well, I mean, again, we've really utilized social media, whether it's Zoom or, applications such as Facebook, Twitter, just to get the word out and to connect with folks. But there have been items recently that has caused our organization to engage, and we've relied on the media to connect our community and to get the word out. You started our conversation by talking about marriage, and far too often, folks, now that we can get married legally across the country, I will get myself into a playful discussion, an argument about, married on Saturday, fired on Monday, because the state of Michigan does not protect the LGBTQ community as it relates to discrimination in our state civil rights law. And so this is a gap that has existed for over 38 years. And at Equality Michigan, our volunteers and board members and staff, we use this as an opportunity each and every day when we're talking to the community, both allies and members, to talk about the need to amend the Elliott Larsen Civil Rights Act to explicitly include sexual orientation, gender identity, and expression. And there's recently been an opportunity for me to lift this up, particularly in Southwest Michigan, and to have these conversations. And, the phone lines start ringing, people start emailing, and they want to know, how can we get law involved to finally make change happen at the Capitol?
So if I can back you up just a little bit, because you're talking about the Elliott Larsen Civil Rights Act of 1976, and I thought it did include your sex as well. Can you fill in the gaps for us right now? Because I feel like there are a lot of people who don't understand this doesn't include you.
That's correct. Sex is prohibited. Sex discrimination is prohibited in the Elliott Larsen Civil Rights Act. And Equality Michigan back in 2017 and 18 asked the Michigan Civil Rights Commission to interpret the definition of sex to include sexual orientation, gender identity, and expression. They agreed with us, and they provided that interpretation. And I believe right now there are 50-some cases of discrimination that are actively being investigated by the Department of Civil Rights here in Michigan. That all being said, depending on where you live and who you work for, there are far too many members of our community that don't have protections. So I like to tell folks, my partner and I, we live in downtown Kalamazoo. There are many municipalities in Kalamazoo County that provide a non-discrimination ordinance that states we can't be fired, kicked out of our housing, or denied services at a local coffee shop. But there are also far too many communities just 3-4 miles from my house that, if Amy and I went to grab a cup of coffee, they could ask us to leave simply because who we are. They could refuse to serve us. And so, there are over 40 municipalities here in Michigan that provide some form of protection in the way of a non-discrimination ordinance. But that patchwork system does not work. It leaves far too many people out. So again, if you work for a corporation that values diversity, equity, inclusion, as a worker, you will be provided protections. And if you live in a community that also values diversity, equity, inclusion, you will have those protections. But there's a lot of spaces within the map of Michigan where those protections just don't exist. And that's why we need to codify it into law by modernizing the Elliott Larsen Civil Rights Act.
So with that, Aaron, how can people take part in your mission?
Absolutely. They can reach out to us. They can sign up on Facebook. They can contact myself and, tell their story. Because as we've been talking about, it really is about changing hearts and minds. And it always surprises me that there are people that will still say, I don't know a member of the LGBTQ community. Well, yes, you do. It's your neighbor. It's your coworker. So we need people to be telling their stories. It's that storytelling that, again, changes hearts and minds and ultimately moves the needle. When I came to Kalamazoo 20-some years ago, I don't think that the polling would suggest that over 75% of Michiganders support our community, but we have polling now, and that is, it's 77% of Michiganders support amending the Elliott Larsen Civil Rights Act to, again, explicitly include sexual orientation, gender identity, and expression.
Well, I want to say thank you for your work. I will say I remember my brother and brother-in-law live in Sterling Heights, and years ago we went to a city council meeting, and the hate that was directed and the misinformation was astounding. We were surprised. We were like, oh my gosh. And, I'm married to an African American, and it's to see like the difference in your community, and we need to all come together, and love is love. Love has no boundaries, and we need to recognize that. And one of the beautiful things is that by telling your story and being an advocate, you are changing people and you are changing hearts. But before we let you go, because I know we're running a little bit behind, I have to ask you, the Mr. Potato Head debate. Okay, can we just be a potato family?
It's just
So I don't have an opinion on Mr. Potato Head. I've been very busy these last couple weeks fighting some discrimination here in the Southwest Michigan region. So I know that there's a story out there, but I can't speak to it.
Tyler wants to chime in on that. He's like, it's a potato.
Yeah, I don't want to chime in on the potato head. So it's the dumbest debate, and I call it debate in quotations because it's just so incredibly stupid. I wanted to ask a question about something that's much more important, and for so many young people, sports in schools is a cornerstone of them growing up, and there's been a lot of debate lately, unfortunately, and a lot of hate that's been targeted at the trans community in particular regarding trans youth and teens playing sports in particular divisions, whether it be boys or girls sports. And I saw a really great quote yesterday from ESPN's Tony Reale. He got in a Twitter shouting match with some jerk, and he responded by saying, "The trans community is our community. Trans athletes are us. For me, the purpose of youth sports is an incredible, long, and wholly life-affirming and enriching list. That needs to apply to all, certainly are most in need of it, and that's the trans youth." And then continued on, "For young athletes, that means a lot, and for young trans athletes, I hope we can all understand it means a lot more. For me, that the last part is everything here." And there's been such a debate about whether or not a trans girl should be allowed to play youth sports in a girls sport, in girls basketball, girls softball, girls track. We saw yesterday's a debate that sparked from June Eastwood, who is a trans woman that won a Big Sky championship in track. What work has your organization been doing, if any, with the MHSAA to bridge those gaps and eliminate some of these discriminatory opinions or discriminatory practices that may be in place in youth sports to provide this cornerstone of growing up to people in the LGBTQ community, particularly in the trans community?
So, I mean, it's a lot of education and storytelling and pointing out, the misinformation that is out there. I shared an article on social media the other day that talked about it's not the trans athletes that are causing other student athletes harm. It's the predatory coaches, and we have an example within the the MSU gymnastics program.
Yes.
Let them play. And again, it's about connecting and dispelling some of these hateful and cruel myths and building support. But it also is, there are states nearby where anti-trans legislation is being introduced. And it's my job to work at the Capitol to make sure that lawmakers understand that if they're going to attempt to introduce anti-trans sports bills here in Michigan, they're going to hit a brick wall with opposition. Again, let the kids play. It builds confidence. It's as a former athlete myself, some of my best memories of my childhood was the experiences that I had playing softball and basketball. And, at the end of the day, that's what's at the heart of all of this. Let them play.
Erin, it's been so great having you with us. We so appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Please, anytime you have a new initiative that you want to share with us, you're always welcome back here on the MegaCast. Again, quickly, what is your Facebook and your social media sites for people to get involved?
I think just the quickest way was, I can't talk, Equality Michigan. Just go into Facebook or onto Twitter. equalitymi.org is our website, and you can find us there.
Great. Thank you so much. We appreciate your time. Erin, not with us here on the MegaCast. She's the Executive Director for Equality Michigan. We're going to take a quick break here on the show, running a little bit behind. We so apologize to our next guest. We are going to be headed to the Frankenmuth Woolen Mill. I learned something new again, Tyler. I was researching them this morning. So we'll talk more about that after the break.
Kurt Lawson, and I'm the Public Information Officer for West Bloomfield Township. We wanted to reach out to you, our older adults, to provide information that you may find useful during this difficult time. We want to ensure you that West Bloomfield Town Hall, our Waters and Utility Department, West Bloomfield Parks, and our police and fire departments continue to work hard on your behalf. Information and resources can be found on the Township website, the police Facebook and Twitter, or call West Bloomfield Park's COVID-19 Help Hotline. Please remember to keep your social distance of at least 6 feet, wear facial coverings when you leave your home, and wash your hands for at least 20 seconds with soap. These precautions will help keep you safe during these difficult times.
This may seem uncomfortable, but so is being hooked to an IV, sleeping in a hospital bed, and fighting for your life. When it comes to COVID-19, comfort is not as important as saving lives. Wearing a mask can greatly reduce the chance of spreading the virus. So mask up, Michigan, every time you leave home.
Great to have you back with us here on the Oakland County Megacast. I'm Ronnie Dahl here in the studios alongside Mr. Tyler Keefe. Just as a reminder, you can always catch us on Civic Center TV, Birmingham Area Municipal Access, Channel 15 on Comcast 99 on AT&T. You can also tune us into the radio, 89.3 Lakes FM, 88.1 FM The Biff. You can also tune us in today. We are live streaming today's edition of the show on my Facebook journalist page, Ronnie Dahl, and that's what makes us the MegaCast. We try to utilize all available platforms to bring you long-form interviews with interesting people, as well as politicians and decision makers, business leaders throughout the pandemic. And looking at our next guest, I am like, where have they been all of my life? I'm ashamed to say they are right down the road pretty much from us, and I have not participated in the great things that they offer us. With us next here on the MegaCast, Abby Curtis with us. She is the co-owner of the Frankenmuth Woolen Mill. Great to have you with us. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
I will say, I was on your, doing the research today, and I was on your website and then doing some other research, and I'm like, oh my God, this is amazing. And you're right down the street. How did I not know about you? But before we get into some of the great things that you've done to help the community during the pandemic, share with us a little bit of background about Frankenmuth Woolen Mill.
Well, we're a woolen mill that was started in 1894, so 127 years ago.
Which is incredible.
Yeah, it is. And we're still operating in the same building on much of the same machinery that we have since 1894. So we sort of say we're a working piece of history. And I think that in and of itself is pretty special. Then the Woolen Mill was started to make socks and mittens and winter woolens for our cold Michigan winters, because that was really needed in 1894.
And it's still needed in 2021.
Especially after this February. It was a cold one. And then during World War I, the mill was awarded a government contract to knit 66,000 pairs of socks for the doughboys in Europe. So that sort of positioned the mill in a really good spot to make it through the Depression. And then into the 50s and 60s, people were quilting at home all the time. They actually had on-the-road salesmen that would go around and sell wool batting. That would be the stuffing that goes inside of quilts. Now we do it all in-house, and we make wool comforters, mattress pads, and pillows.
So Abby, this is amazing to me. My mother was a quilter. She would do it by hand, though. She was like a hand stitcher. But I'm looking at your quilts, and what is the process, and how have you survived for more than 100 years?
Well, I think hard work and some ingenuity has had a lot to do with it. Like I said, they've had some government contracts, and then they had traveling salesmen. For a while, they went into knitting yarn, and then the mill went out of knitting yarn. And now we're deciding, I guess, to concentrate on what we do best, which my husband and Matt and I feel is making all natural wool bedding. Today, I think it's extra special because we're using this old equipment. So in 1894, they didn't have chemicals and additives and all that type of thing. So today, we still don't have any of that. So I think the natural aspect of it is really important today, because we're spending a lot of time in bed, and you don't want to be breathing in anything that might have any chemicals that could harm you.
So I think it's beautiful what your company is doing, but before we get to the organic side of your business, what's it been like for your company during the pandemic, because so many companies have had to shut down, at least for a period of time?
And we were one of those companies. It was, I believe it was March 23rd when manufacturing and retail was closed in Michigan. And so we closed, and then we were able to open back up in mid-May with the manufacturing end of it. Retail took a little bit longer because we do have a retail store downtown Frankenmuth, but so we did close for 2 months. We were lucky enough that we had made a lot of back stock, if you will, so our online business could stay open. And my husband and I and our daughter came into work every day, and we answered phones and sent out comforters, and we were able to weather that storm because we were prepared. But yeah,
that's what family does, right?
Yeah.
How old is your daughter?
She's 23. She was a senior at college, and she came home from spring break and didn't leave. And then we were like, we need you.
Welcome to the family business. You're going to work.
Yeah, it might not have been your plan, but it is today.
She's so lucky, though, to have this as her background, and also the experience of it as well, because I think I was reading too, prior to the shutdown, you guys went to work for the community and making masks. How did that work?
Well, we didn't really do it to make masks. We were donating fabric that our local mask makers could make masks out of. It started out
But fabric was so hard to find in the beginning, right? It was a shortage.
There was a true shortage. Just as the shutdown was starting, I was talking to a friend, and she said, do you have a little bit of fabric? My mom and I, we want to try to make some masks. And I said, oh gosh, we have a lot of fabric and a lot of scrap fabric because, mask is only using like 7 by 9 inches of fabric. And I said, we're making huge comforters. 7 by 9 inches is a scrap that we have. So I brought her a little bag over and she said, can I tell my friends, do you have more? I was like, sure. And before you know it, all of our scrap was gone and we were just cutting straight yardage for masks, and we gave out patterns to people, and we put a table outside of the mill where people could come and just pick up a little mask packet with instructions and what they needed to be able to make a mask.
So in the beginning, you were so vital. How many masks were made out of the materials that you donated?
We are figuring it was about 35,000 masks.
That's so awesome.
Yeah, we even, I'm sure we all felt this way, but a couple of weeks into the shutdown, it was like, oh my gosh, I just want to go for a drive. And so we had a couple of people from the Detroit area that had called for masks, and we were like, yeah, meet us at a gas station and we'll give you some mask fabric. We just wanted a drive to have a reason to go somewhere. And so we made it down to the Detroit area a couple of times, and it felt good to be able to do something. And I think everybody last spring just wanted to do something to help. And making masks was it. It gave people meaning and purpose. And that happened for us too. So it felt good.
It is a great thing that you were able to do, but we're a year into this almost. Since then, we are all spending so much more time in our homes. How have sales been for your company during the pandemic?
They've been crazy good for us. I think that people had more time to maybe read about our story and what we're doing. A lot of people want American made and Michigan made. Those are things that we're really proud of. And so not only are we made in America, but our fabric is organic and we process the wool in an organic way. So I think that we all became a lot more aware when we were spending all this time at home of really what we were bringing into our homes. And so we were able to capitalize on that because we had that product. It was just a matter of people being able to find us.
But the beautiful thing as well is that you are also employing local people into your company as well. Talk a little bit about that during the middle of a pandemic when so many people are struggling right now.
Well, I think with everything being so local, we could really stay in contact with our employees through that pandemic. We also, when we came back, everyone came back, which wasn't the case for a lot of businesses. So we felt really fortunate that everyone was really dedicated to their job and to their work. And so it was really, it was in such a bad, dark time for so many people. It was really great for us because our work is like our family.
You know, that's beautiful to know as well. And it's like Michigan made, and it's right here in our backyard. And you're supporting our families, you're supporting our community. Abby Curtis with us here on the Megacast. She is the co-owner for Frankenmuth Woolen Mill. They are dedicated to making fully organic, locally homegrown bedding, and we have been spending so much more time in our beds, like just vegging out on Netflix and so many other things. Abby, before we say goodbye, anything else that you want to share about your company and your story as well?
I guess I should say, as far as wool bedding is concerned, there are a lot of natural health benefits from it that we haven't really talked about. One being that they keep you warm in the winter and cool in the summer, and you don't have any hot or cold spots. So it's good
for women going through menopause, right? Or premenopause or postmenopause.
Amen to that.
Right.
So there's a lot of health benefits to it also, but we're just happy to to be able to continue forward after 127 years, and we can't wait to see where we are in another 127.
So you survived the first pandemic. You're surviving the second pandemic. We're hoping not for a third, right?
No, we're hoping pandemics are over for the Woolen Mill.
I think the more important thing here is the story of your company as well. Where can people find out more information about your company?
You can find us online at www.wool-bedding.com. And we're also on Facebook and Instagram at frankenmuthwoolenmill.com.
So other than comforters, is that pretty much what you make? Just comforters?
We do comforters, mattress pads, and wool-filled pillows. And we also make wool dryer balls that can go into your dryer and replace dryer sheets.
Huh. That's interesting. See, I learned something new again, Tyler, every
always.
single day. Abby, it's so great having you with us. We so appreciate your time.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
But again, we want to say thank you for supporting our community during the pandemic and surviving as well. And we hope that people recognize that you're in our backyards and also the great product that you make as well.
Well, thank you so much.
We're going to take a quick break here on the Megacast, and when we come back, we are going to be lucky enough to be joined with the new head varsity football coach for the West Bloomfield High School. This is the Oakland County Megacast.
The only way to beat COVID-19 is to face it.
You can't get too comfortable.
You can't forget the danger.
Wear the mask.
Wear the mask.
Wear the mask. Wash your hands.
Keep a safe distance.
Especially in the next few months.
You know we'll get back to normal.
We'll get back to normal.
We'll get back to normal.
Someday.
But not yet.
Not yet.
Not yet.
But not yet.
But not yet.
Consider virtual gatherings for the holidays.
Curbside food orders.
Grocery delivery.
And shopping local. Shop local.
And especially shopping local.
Let's beat this virus. We can if we face it together.
Together.
Together. Together.
Together.
Together.
Together.
Together. Together.
Together.
Together.
For the latest information, visit oakgov.com/COVID.
Michigan, the coronavirus pandemic has put us all to the test. And now it's time to put COVID-19 to the test. As we move forward, testing will be critical. We encourage anyone who has reason to get tested to do so, those with symptoms and those without. If you are leaving home and going back to work, get tested. If you think you may have COVID-19 or you've been exposed recently through family, friends, or coworkers, get tested. Our test locator tool can help you find the right testing site that fits your needs. Even if you're looking for easy access with no cost, no prescription, and no appointment necessary, we've got you covered. Help Michigan move forward, not backward. To find a testing site or learn more, visit michigan.gov/coronavirus test. A message from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services.
Perry tested positive for COVID-19. Emma was exposed to a friend who's positive. Willa's waiting on test results. After any contact with COVID-19, or if you test positive, stay home for at least 10 days. If you live with others, keep your distance and wear a mask. Help Michigan contain COVID-19. Visit michigan.gov/contain-COVID.
We want to say thank you for taking time out of your day to be with us here on the Megacast. Just about 15 minutes left here in the show, and we are so lucky to be joined right now with Tyrese Grice. He is the new head varsity football coach for the West Bloomfield High School Lakers. Thank you for being with us, and congratulations, Coach.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
So when you got the announcement that you were going to be the new head coach, what were you thinking?
Well, I was surprised, but I wasn't surprised. The reason I say that because I think I did a great job during the interview process, and I was one of the guys that really helped build this program. So I was really looking forward to this opportunity. So when when they called and told me that I was elected the choice for the school, I was excited. Just all the hard work that you put in since you've been here for 8 years. I'm just proud that someone took advantage of that and say, hey, we want this guy to be our next head football coach. So I'm excited for that opportunity.
So with that, and as you just mentioned, you've been with the team for 8 years, and you worked under Coach Ron Bellamy, who is leaving to go to the University of Michigan.
Yes.
What advice did he give you as he turned over the reins?
Well, he's like, just continue to build what you're doing, keep the staff in place, because that's the critical part of it, is that we have a strong staff, a good staff. That was probably the best advice he gave me, is to keep everybody in place and just continue doing what we're doing with the legacy that we're doing. So that's my plan, and that's what we're going to do to move forward.
But Coach, do you feel a lot of pressure coming off of the school's first big championship win?
It's a little pressure because that's the hard, you're following Ron Bellamy, who did an excellent job building this program. So that's a tough shoe to follow, but we're going to do our best what we have. We're going to be a young team this year. So we was a senior-dominated team. So that's where the pressure comes in. At he's okay. What we're going to do with these young guys and help them develop. So we're going to, with those young guys, we'll be able to put our own mark on it, but we'll be fine.
So before I kind of turn the interview over to Tyler, because he's the sports expert, I'm just the general person, but I will say, I was watching Real Sports last night. The only reason why I keep HBO is to watch Real Sports with Bryant Gumbel, which is funny because I don't like sports, even though I'm married to a sports guy. I don't like sports, but I love Real Sports Detroit because they tell great stories. And one of the things they were talking about is the lack of African American coaches in the NFL. And I would like to get your perspective on that. And I know that you're high school, but still in an overall general sense. I don't know if you saw the segment, but can you talk about the issue of diversity within the coaching ranks?
That's been I'm on some social media sites where they talk about those things, and it's a big discussion because when you look at the league and look at where football is going, you have almost 70% of the athletes, student athletes, are generally almost African American. So there's a level of comfort that these players out here that they deal with that African American coaches can adjust to or relate to. So it's really a relatable factor out there in the coaching world, where kids can come to their coach because they can deal with the problems they may have socially at home, economically at home, that some coaches probably can't understand, even though they're great coaches. But kids kind of funnel their way to those coaches. So if you look at coaches in the NFL, the pros, even if you look at the University of Michigan where Bellamy went, they changing their culture, what they want to do, and so there's opportunities out there, and it's great coaches out there, and I think people are starting to see that, and I think people like Bellamy getting those opportunities to coach at the next level is where they open the doors at. The doors are open, just people got to take chances on us.
We're joined by Tyrese Grice. He is the head coach of the West Bloomfield High School varsity football team, recently named the head coach, taking over for Ron Bellamy, who has departed for the University of Michigan. And Coach Grice, so much of the locker room experience for these players and so much of the chemistry that was present with this West Bloomfield team in this championship year goes to the relationships that are in place between player to player and players to their coaches. What was the reaction from the team, from the returning players, and from those that are recently graduating either this year or in past years when they got the news that you were named the new head coach of the football team?
Oh, they were elated. They were excited about keeping the staff together, and by my hiring, that's going to continue on. But I have a good bond with a lot of the players on the team, so that guys called me, former players called me, or left me text messages to congratulate me on the job. So I'm excited about that. Just to get that support from those guys says a lot about how I treated them, more importantly. So to get that response back, that was just overwhelming to me, and I was really emotional just to hear those guys say, Coach Grice, I'm glad you got the job, you deserve it. That's probably the most common word I heard from a lot of my former players and current players, Coach, you deserve this. And they see the work that I put in without no complaints. We just do what we do on defense, and so I'm proud of that. So that's the kind of response we have received so far from some of our players.
Yeah, we loved when analyzing sports to look at the numbers and to analyze the numbers, and so much of this West Bloomfield championship team had to do with defense. 434 points for West Bloomfield over the course of the year, and exactly 100 total points allowed for West Bloomfield's opponents. That's 8.3 points per game. There was a 4-game period of 152 consecutive points scored by West Bloomfield unanswered after the loss in week 2 to Clarkston the remainder of the season, 357-61. Defense has definitely been West Bloomfield's strong suit and has been an emphasis, but it's also a lot of talent development. And West Bloomfield continues to be very loaded with excellent young players that are very hard-working players as well. And having played through this COVID season with so much start and stop, with so much adversity there, does that make the development process a little bit quicker or a little bit different or more nuanced for these younger players now, as we see some of these seniors and these great leaders like Donovan Edwards and like Alex Short depart as they take over the leadership reins, as you also do going forward with this team?
Well, this group of guys that's coming about, they're young. We were a senior-dominated defense. We lost 8 seniors this year, but we played throughout the game close to 18 players throughout the game where they played number 1 rep minutes. So those guys going to come back, and I expect not to change a bit in terms of their abilities. But I think going forward, the leadership's going to have to step up. We got some young guys, the Dylan Tatums in the world, Mike Williams, those guys, they returning. They are at 22, so they're going to take on a leadership role. Again, shutting out, scoring 100 points. I'm still upset where we gave too many points to Belleville, but that's another story. But after that Clarkston game, we were really upset, and I think that set the tone going forward. Because most teams, our defense, when we have a dominant defense, usually because we were a strong senior-oriented defense. So that was one of the things that was a plus for us going forward, that we were experienced defense. So, and they take pride. We had 5 shutouts, which is a high school record, and 6 shutouts. I'm sorry.
Yes.
They broke the record of 5 shutouts back in we had 2015. So every week when we shut out a team, it's my responsibility to bring in donuts, and they look forward to those donuts. And donuts represents that we shut a team out. So, and I reward the defense with donuts. So they're excited about that. We're excited about that, and we look forward to a great defense again this year.
Coach Tyrese Grace with us. He's the new head coach of the West Bloomfield High School varsity football team, joining us on the Oakland County Megacast. 6 shutouts as the defensive coordinator for the Division I MHSAA champion West Bloomfield Lakers in 2021, including against the defending champions 41-0 at Ford Field to take home the championship. So coming back next year, there are a lot of talented players that are returning. It's definitely a younger team than this very senior-laden squad we had and won the championship with. But young guys coming back, like you said, Mike Williams, Kyle Johnson, Kari Jackson, Malik Mathea on the offensive end, and interior guys as well, where the D-line was arguably the most dominant part of that defense this year, taking out opportunities for teams that were really strong, particularly in the running game, and having guys coming back like Ryan Ross, like Amir Herring, like Brandon Davis-Swain, and more in that linebacking core as well, like Kyle Johnson we mentioned. How does that help to set the tone and to set your defense up next year to come back and have a strong start as well? Having that experience, that talent, that ability, and guys that have been there and done that as younger players file in and usher in the next era of West Bloomfield football.
We have 2 dynamic freshmen that played varsity last year, and they played number 1 minutes with the number 1 squad, and that is Brandon Davis and Kari Jackson. Both received multiple offers, both from Michigan State. So we expect those guys, young guys, to really push some things. We lost Jordan Hoskins last year as our Mike Backer, who was really the bread and butter of our defense.
Yes.
And we got some young guys. Hopefully, Corey, we have a linebacker, Corey, come in and step up and fill those holes. We're going to move Dylan Tatum to corner so he can be better facilitate. We lost some guys at that position. Our defense is all about speed, so we're going to put the fastest guys on the football field at all times. And so we got some returning B.J. Rankin, who was our starting rover last year, and I expect big things from him. And on the offensive side of the ball, we're returning 3 out of the 5 starting offensive line. The beauty of it is we have them for the next 2 or 3 years because one was a freshman and Ryan Ross started left guard. Our big left tackle, Amir Herring, he's has multiple offers. He's going to be a big time prospect for us. And then our center, Dallin Henry, who is a sophomore. So we expect some big things. Our quarterback situation, we got to define that. We got some young guys that's coming in as quarterback. So that's going to be a competitive position for they could be fighting for. I'm not going to set this tone who's going to be our quarterback yet, but I think that's a competitive position right there. So we're excited about this new group of guys that's going to move us forward, but they're young, talented guys. So we're excited about that.
Coach Tyrese Grice with us on the Oakland County Megacast, new West Bloomfield head football coach on the varsity side. Just about 30 seconds left with you, Coach. Expectations for next season. Coming off a championship season, what can the West Bloomfield faithful expect from the Lakers in the 2021-2022 season?
Oh, you'll expect a very physical, disciplined team. They're going to carry my personality, my attitude throughout the whole program. So we're going to be very, very aggressive like we always do. Offensively, we're going to have a balanced attack. We have a load of great running backs, although we had Donovan Edwards back there, but it was a lot of guys waiting their turn, and you're going to see some running backs that's going to be very talented. So I think what you're going to expect from me is, again, a competitive team out there. And we're going to be young, but we're going to be talented.
Well, Coach, we thank you very much for joining us on today's edition of the Oakland County Megacast. That is going to do it for our show today. It is time for Ronnie and I to go. We will be back Thursday morning, 10 o'clock to 12 noon. You can also join us throughout the afternoon for replays on Civic Center TV and right here on 89.3 Lakes FM.